Okay, so Abraham Lincoln is the president of the United States, obviously 16th president. Okay, and then Jefferson Davis, this guy on the right, he is the president of the Confederate States of America. Okay, the South.
Why?
Because he was elected. Okay, Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is the commander of the South. Okay, like I talked about, the North feared Robert E. Lee because of his military strategy. Below, there are 4 commanders for the North. Why do you guys think there are 4 commanders in the North?
To reach his IQ level.
Okay, so there are 4 commanders in the North because
they had a bigger army.
Okay, that's a good guess. That they had a bigger army. The actual reason is that these first 3 commanders, okay, Winfield Scott, George McClellan, Henry Halleck, those 3 were too fearful of Robert E. Lee. They were too afraid to fight him. So Lincoln is essentially going to just fire them. Okay, he goes through one, goes to another, and then goes through that one, goes to another, until he finally finds somebody willing to battle Robert E. Lee, and that is Ulysses S. Grant, who is in the far right. Okay? The strategy of the Confederate Army. Okay, this is the South. Their strategy was to maintain a defensive position, right? Most of the Civil War is going to be fought in the South. So, they're playing defense, letting the North come to them. Who else worked this strategy? Where they played defense and protected their home territory. Who else did this in a war to win it?
Football. What?
Who else did this in a war to win the war? Good. Okay, the United States against Great Britain. Okay, when we fought them in the Revolutionary War, we protected our own territory, right? We were fighting a war in our homeland against the British. Okay. Their other strategy was to inflict significant casualties on the Union side. I mean, that's war. Who wouldn't? Okay, want that to be their strategy in war. And to wear down the resolve of the North to fight. Okay, this means that they wanted the North to lose their cause, lose their purpose. The purpose for fighting the war was to end what?
Slavery.
Slavery, right? They wanted to end slavery. So what the South wanted to do is make them lose their purpose and have nothing to fight for anymore. They were saying, essentially, you're fighting this war to end slavery, and at what cost? At this cost, you're losing husbands, you're losing fathers, you're losing sons for the benefit of slaves. That was their argument. They're saying you're dying, and it's not even benefiting you, it's benefiting the slaves. Yes, Jack?
If the Confederate side won the war, what do you think the slaves would be doing right now? Like, would they be working the factories?
Cotton.
Yeah, I honestly, I can't answer that question. I have absolutely no idea what the United States would look like had the South won the Civil War.
Like, there would be no machinery. They would just use slaves.
I would think that we would still have progressed at some point to end slavery. I think, regardless of, even if the South won the Civil War, that humankind would develop in general to realize that slavery is bad. Okay? And the final point was to make the North give up the idea of a united North and South. Okay? They wanted them to give up on that idea that we were just going to have a united North and South and just settle on us having a North and us having a South. Okay, the Union strategy. This is the strategy of the North, was to achieve a decisive victory in single battle regardless of casualties. So they're saying, like, it's kind of like a no retreat strategy. They're going to go all in on the battle and take out as many people as they can regardless of how many people they lose. Control Confederate port cities. Okay, Zaya, what's a port city in the South that we've talked about in this class? A port city. We got it in the Louisiana Purchase.
New Orleans.
JC. New Orleans, okay?
Let's go, JC.
We got the city of New Orleans in the Louisiana Purchase, and it's a significant city because it's on a port, okay? The North wants to control these port cities so that they have access to the Mississippi River, and they can block off the South from getting their supplies out of these ports. They also wanted to destroy the Confederate economically, force them to come back, and restore the Union into a single country again, back to the United States. Okay, we talked about this some on Monday when we did the packet for Abraham Lincoln. These 4 different states, Kentucky, Missouri, Maryland, and Delaware, were 4 states that had slavery, but they did not secede. They didn't leave the Union. Okay, these 4 states stayed a part of the United States. And this is important. Abraham Lincoln wants to hold these 4 states because if they secede, then that's going to put them at a disadvantage. There's 4 more states headed to the south. Okay? And Maryland specifically was important because Maryland is really close to Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is what, Marcy? What's Washington, D.C.? Why is D.C. significant? What's there? What's that? Washington, D.C.?
Nothing.
The White House.
The White House. Good, Zaya. Okay, Washington, D.C. has the White House. It's got
And a monument.
the nation's capital. So if Maryland goes to the south, that gives the South easy access to attack Washington, D.C., attack the capital.
Wait, but like Maryland's on the other side of the country.
Maryland is on the east coast.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so my question is this. We talked about it on Monday. Why would Abraham Lincoln, with the Emancipation Proclamation, why would he not free the slaves in these 4 states? What is he afraid of, Aiden?
Because he feared that
Dying.
the slaves would join
The Southerners.
the South and like start a war with the North. And
Good. He was afraid that these 4 states would join the South. If he freed the slaves in these 4 states, that they might join the South, and that's more states against the North.
yes,
Okay? Some strengths and weaknesses of the Confederacy. We touched on this a little bit already. Some of the strengths of the South was that they were defending their homeland. They're familiar with the territory, right? Same way the Americans were in the American Revolution. They were defending their territory, familiar with the land, and really the main other advantage is going to be the military leadership of Robert E. Lee. Okay, Robert E. Lee is a big benefit to the South. Some of their weaknesses is that they had few factories. Okay, the North has all the factories, so they couldn't make as many weapons and goods, clothing. Not as many railroads as the North, and so the South was all about state rights. They wanted to have strong state governments, but if you have strong state governments, what does that leave weak? Who's weak? Then
Federal.
good, the federal government. If you have a strong state government, you have a weak federal government, which makes it hard to make decisions. And then the South had a small population in comparison to the North, right? The North had how many more times troops, Damien? The North had how many more times the troops as the South? Joseph? 4 times, good. North had 4 times as many troops, okay? And that's what's the strength on this side. The North has 4 times as many. They also had railroads, factories, the telegraph, okay? And the Union had a blockade of port cities, specifically New Orleans, okay? We talked about how in that video yesterday you guys watched of John Green, he talked about how basically the North had all these big advantages that they should have won the war easily, like because they had so many more troops, because they had factories, because they had railroads. Like it should have been an easy win for the North.
Easy dub.
So that covers the Civil War introduction. That we now you kind of have an overview, a good overview of the Civil War and what it's going to look like. Okay.